to at least seem to know what he was talking about. And if you don't know the facts, you think, well, he's making a lot of sense. It's only when you're familiar with the issues that you know, well, that's not true, and that's not true.
But you know what? The things that stood out to me, Gail, is the content and the substance was very familiar, because most of what Donald Trump said there was not new. Any rally, he hits most of those greatest hits and those talking points. They could have been fact-checked quickly. For President Biden, and some of the things we talked about, the importance of abortion in particular for Democrats, he stumbled on his answer. And it wasn't just meandering. Joe Biden stumbled on his answer. He started talking about abortion and then said something about being raped by your sister. He went from the very key issue of abortion, something about the border and a recent death of a 12-year-old girl allegedly at the hands of a migrant. So he took himself into an issue that is not a strength for him, the very real border crisis in this country. He also seemed to lose his point a few times on the issue of foreign policy, which he is so proud of. He took Donald Trump to a weakness, which was referring to that deadly day in 2021 with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, one of the single deadliest days for U.S. troops in that entire 20-year war, and said no soldiers died on my watch. 13 service people died. So it was as if some parts of this were memorized and then the points were lost. And for Donald Trump, there was no policy to back up.
But what about Trump's missteps and lies? He said, I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. That is not true. That is a signature accomplishment by the Biden.
The price caps.
Price caps, misleading.
He refused to commit to accepting the results of the election as well.
Right. Trump said also at one point that the January 6th insurrectionists were ushered into the Capitol, when we have all seen the truth that, of course, and many of them have been charged and convicted and are now in jail for actually beating up law enforcement in order to break through and get into the U.S. Capitol.
I was fascinated by his comment about the migrants are taking the black jobs and the Hispanic jobs, and I'm sitting here trying to think, what is a black job?
You're saying Donald Trump.
Yes, Donald Trump.
And
what is a black job and what is a Hispanic job?
Well, and the widespread frustration among Democrats who are watching this tonight, in the words of one of them, they said, look, we win on the issues, this Democrat said, but our guy can't hit on the issues. He has one significant problem, his age, and tonight made it worse.
And who said that?
This was a senior Midwestern Democrat watching this tonight, like many Democrats, freaked out by the first 7 minutes of this.
You mean a senior like in age, or someone who's an elected official?
Someone who works with elected officials and has worked on several Democratic campaigns. And this is widespread. Talking to Democrats tonight, they believe the first 7 minutes, probably the worst 7 minutes of the Biden presidency, but that he was able to recover over the course of this by hitting Trump on abortion, on the issue of democracy on January 6th, on calling out the fact that he wouldn't stay in NATO, and then this wild exchange at the end about golf handicaps. And
the most significant exchange between the two candidates
was over their golf.
Was over their golf records and their swing. I mean, talk about America deserves a fair hearing.
And we had no detailed answers on.
That was the most extensive back and forth the two had. It wasn't Social Security and Medicare.
Let's bring in Robert Costa, who has been talking to officials in both campaigns with reaction to tonight's debate. Robert?
Good to be with you, Nora. They're piling into this so-called spin room here in Atlanta right now. All of the Trump campaign officials. I just saw Dr. Ben Carson, Senator Marco Rubio, and many others. And talking to top Trump campaign officials over the past hour, they feel confident about this debate. They feel that former President Trump was able to make claim after claim without much pushback from the moderators or from President Biden. But there is some private concern among some Trump sources that can they answer this question in a positive way for Trump? Did he expand his coalition tonight? Yes, he roused his base. Yes, he kept his temperament contained, didn't interrupt a lot. But was he able to reach those core voters who still might be on the fence about him? To build on Margaret's point and others, the exchange on abortion rights seen as a key one. Is that going to drive Democratic turnout or not? But for now, in the immediate aftermath, the Trump campaign feeling good, but so are Biden campaign sources, because they say he's steady. Yes, he is 81 years old, but he was able to hit his marks, in their view, time and again.
Robert Costa, thank you. I want to turn to Nancy Cordes, who has been speaking with officials in the Biden campaign. And Nancy, I think the first thing that many people witnessed in watching this debate was President Biden's shaky, hoarse voice. What's wrong with him?
Well, Nora, we only found out what's wrong with him about halfway through the debate. We started asking right away. As soon as he took the stage, as soon as he opened his mouth and started speaking, he obviously sounded raspy. And so I started firing off texts to various Biden campaign officials, what's wrong with him, and got radio silence. One person said, well, maybe he just needs to warm up. And then about 45 minutes in, a slew of responses from White House and Biden campaign officials saying, yes, he has had a cold for the past few days. He was examined by his personal doctor, Kevin O'Connor, at Camp David. He tested negative for COVID, but he does have a cold, and that's why he is raspy. But that really begs the question, Nora, why they didn't let people know beforehand to sort of set expectations among the audience so people weren't taken by surprise, particularly when so many voters already have concerns about his age, about his stamina. I asked all those White House officials after they confirmed that he was sick why they hadn't said anything in advance. Nobody answered.
Mm-hmm. You know, Nancy, so much of the reporting that you have done all week on the evening news is that, you know, the Trump supporters, including the former president, said that Biden would be jacked up on drugs for this debate. But he really sounded like he needed some cold medicine to take before this whole event so that he could make some of his points. It was difficult to even hear him on some of the exchanges. Nancy Cordes, thank you. And ahead, our own chief Washington correspondent, Major Garrett, is going to fact check some of the candidates' claims tonight. I know we're talking a lot about style, but there was also a lot of substance. And why didn't the candidates talk more about the future? You're watching CBS News.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Nations are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to CBS News coverage of the first presidential debate. President Biden and former President Donald Trump made a lot of claims tonight, and we're going to fact check them. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett has been looking into all of the statements made tonight. Major?
Thank you, Nora. The CBS Confirmed team has 3 fact checks for you out of the box. Let's go to our first one. President Trump said we have the greatest economy in the history of our country. Now, of course, the economy is a perception as much as a statistical reality, but there are statistics. And the statistics show, based on gross domestic product, unemployment, and stock market gains, there are other times in American history where the economy was far better than during the 4 years of the Trump administration. On two of those metrics, gross domestic product and unemployment, even the Biden administration record is better than the Trump record even before the pandemic set in. Let's go to fact check number 2. This is something that President Biden said, talking about immigration, about a recent change he made about those crossing the border, saying that 40% fewer people are coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. We rate that as partially true because of something that President Biden has recently done. Those border crossings are down, and they are down by about 40%. Of course, before that, the numbers were higher. They compare somewhat favorably to those during the Trump administration. That's why we rate this as partially true. Another very important point that came up in the debate was a comment from President Trump about partial birth abortion, or abortions late in term, 8th, 9th month, even afterwards. Former President Trump said, quoting former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, that there could be killings of babies even after birth. We rate this as false. Governor Northam was talking about a hypothetical situation where a baby was not going to live outside the womb. And this is called infanticide. Everyone knows that. It's not legal in any state. No state is debating making it legal. That's why we rate this claim, asserted by President Trump during this debate, as false. Nora, back to you.
All right, really interesting, Major Garrett and the whole team. Thank you very much. Ed O'Keefe, I want to ask you about some of your reporting. You know, voters were watching this. Republicans were watching this, independents who haven't decided, and then Democrats and Democratic lawmakers. What are officials who hold office in the Democratic Party saying tonight about President Biden's performance?
There are at least some House Democrats who were gathered tonight watching this together, talking to the White House about having him step down. That's how bad it was in their view. Remember, House Democrats are on the verge of trying to get back the majority. They're nervous about doing that in places in these battleground states where they're going to need a strong top of the ticket. They may need to rely on a strong Senate or gubernatorial candidate, and in some cases they don't have it.
Step down before the convention?
Well, to at least throw up somebody else instead of the president that debated tonight.
I just want to be clear about this reporting because, you know, there are more than 200 House Democrats.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So are these, when you say a group, are these 3 House Democrats who may be progressive and are angry with Biden about the war in Israel? Are they leadership? Who are, because there's a lot of Democrats, just like there are a lot of Republicans. There are 435 members of the House.
House Democrats, some in safe districts, others not. And as one of these House Democrats is telling me by text, I've never seen a freak out like this before. We've heard the conversations, right? We've heard it for years. He's too old. He shouldn't be doing this. Now tonight, there are at least conversations about taking more aggressive action.
Well, that was one of the main jobs he had to do tonight.
The two candidates operate in 2 very different parties.
Right.
Yes.
When Donald Trump does his, when he tells lies and misrepresents what happens on January 6th, Mitch McConnell, who said that Trump was responsible for January 6th, endorses him. The Republican Party has rallied around Donald Trump no matter essentially what he says. In the Democratic Party, there are conversations at whatever level about this weakness of Joe Biden's, and those will continue, and that party will have its conversation in public. That's very different than the way a Republican Party reacts to the weaknesses of its nominee.
I want to go back to Atlanta for reporting there. Robert Costa joins us from the spin room there. Robert?
Certainly, Nora, based on my conversations with Democrats, some might be frustrated with President Biden's performance tonight, but talking to sources close to President Biden, people who have known him for a long time, there is zero chance, they tell me tonight, he steps away from running. They believe this election's about Trump, not about President Biden's debate performance, and they believe they have a record to run on. He's going to continue to hit abortion rights, hit the issue of the economy, American democracy, and that this is not a watershed politically in this campaign. It's the start of the campaign. That's the view from a lot of people who know Biden, and they say he may not have brought his best game tonight, but their explanation is this is just who he is in terms of his personality, but he's going to bring the fight with advertising. The money is where it matters in the fall, not a debate in the summer in Atlanta.
Robert, do you think there'll be a second presidential debate?
There's one scheduled in September. At the moment, it's on the books, but a lot can happen. The conventions are going to matter. At this point, both campaigns seemed a little bit debated out tonight, but we're in the immediate aftermath. I wouldn't rule it out exactly at this point either.
And you have followed Donald Trump so closely, having interviewed him over the years, written a book, of course, with Bob Woodward about the Trump presidency. How did you find his performance tonight, and also some of the comments he continued to make that are largely been viewed as lies or mistruths?
Well, they're a continuation of what he's done on the campaign for the entire past year. And let's just give people the real reminder of the context here. This was a debate performance the Trump people here in this room feel really good about. There's no doubt about that. But what matters, too, is that in just a few days, on July 11th, former President Trump's going to face criminal sentencing in New York for that hush money payments trial. Could even be put in jail sometime later this year. That's not off the table. And then he has to make a real decision on a running mate. Who is he going to have as his number two? He's 78 years old. A lot of people will be looking at that decision as they make their own.
Robert Costa, thank you. And John Dickerson, these debates are so critically important because there's no other opportunity where you're supposed to get a contrast of ideas where tens of millions of people, like a Super Bowl, sit down and decide, who do I want to vote for? They're just so rare, these events. Did President Biden defend his record? Did Donald Trump defend his record?
Well, Donald Trump defended his record. The question is whether what he did was true and consistent with his actual record. And Joe Biden at times defended his record. But if his biggest challenge was optics, was showing people that he was a competent president in command of his facts, he struggled on that.
And Margaret, what do you think about that in terms of not only, it seemed for the first 50 minutes we remarked about, gosh, this was a lot about their own records.
Right.
What about the future?
What about the future? What about those young voters that are so key to Democratic turnout and Joe Biden being able to close this deal in November when they see two men, one nearly 80, the other one in his 80s, not be able to articulate clearly what their positions are on many of the most essential issues at a time of crisis?
Thanks,
It's a problem.
Thank you to everyone. Our coverage of the presidential debate will continue on CBS News 24/7 in just a moment. And on your local news on this CBS station, and CBS Mornings is going to have a lot on this tomorrow. For our entire team here in New York and Atlanta, I'm Norah O'Donnell. Good night.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
These are the stories
1, 2, 3, go!
Of we, the people.
We're trying to generate our own hope.
It's a huge deal.
I'm enabling them to feel valued.
Eye on America. Weeknights on the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell.
Stakes in this election couldn't be higher.
November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country.
This is a CBS News special, America Decides, the first presidential debate. Now reporting, Norah O'Donnell.
And welcome back to the CBS News stream and to stations joining us from across the country for continued coverage of the first presidential debate of the 2024 election. I'm Norah O'Donnell in New York City at the CBS News election headquarters with the best political team in the business. I'm joined by John Dickerson, Margaret Brennan, Ed O'Keefe, and Major Garrett on their take on tonight's debate and what, if anything, the American people may have learned that they didn't already know. Ed O'Keefe, first to you. setting up what happened in tonight's debate?
Well, I mean, obviously not the most substantive exchange. A lot of unanswered questions on the deportation of 11 million immigrants, about how to pay for child care, about how to deal with the deficit, about whether to extend tax cuts. A lot of conversation about golf handicaps and other issues. But big concern among Democrats tonight about the president's performance. Remember, it was the president who pushed for this. He wanted this. His campaign wanted it as an opportunity to reset the campaign or jumpstart it going into the rest of the summer, hoping that it would help propel him a bit. We were warned ahead of this. If Democrats see a good performance tonight, they'll be okay with it. They'll move on. If they don't, panic will ensue. Tonight, there are signs that some elected officials in the party may be at least talking about going to the White House and the Biden campaign and saying he's got to rethink whether he should be the nominee. How far that would go, how serious it would be, remains to be seen with just a few weeks until the Chicago convention. But it is being talked about in real ways today.
John, sources close to the president say he's had a cold for the past couple of days. He was tested for COVID by his doctor, does not have it. Questions tonight about why he didn't take some cold medicine or something. How much of it a distraction was it from him being able to present and defend his own record as president and hold Trump's feet to the fire for what he did as president and some of the mistruths that happened tonight?
Well, it is. I mean, Donald Trump is the hardest person to debate because he is a Gatling gun of misinformation, recharacterization, sometimes outright delusions, and he was in full form this evening. But if the Biden campaign's goal was turn this into a choice, not a referendum, what choice were people left with at the end of that debate? What clear thing can somebody say, you know, it's really a choice between this and this? Did the Biden campaign get that choice that they want to have in this campaign and have it be clear? I don't think it came out of this debate as clear. Now, we need to always remember that what happens in these debates and the immediate assessment of those of us who watch them from beginning to end is different than how they get processed in the news cycle.
This is the president and the first lady at a watch party. Let's listen in for just a minute.
Look, folks, you know, I shouldn't say this. He always uses lines from movies. There was a famous movie, John Wayne, and he's working for the northern military, trying to get the Apaches back in the reservation. And they were lying like hell to him. And they're all sitting on a bluff. And John Wayne was sitting with two Indian, they were Apaches. And one of them looked at John Wayne and said, "These guys are nothing but lying, dog-faced pony soldiers." Except he's just a liar. Look, folks, what's going to happen over the next couple of days is they're going to be out there fact-checking all the things he said. I can't think of one thing he said that was true. No, I'm not being facetious. But look, we're going to beat this guy. We need to beat this guy. And I need you in order to beat him. You're the people I'm running for. Here. He says he's going to be the retribution for his supporters. You are the reason why America's as good as we are. We're the finest nation in the whole damn world. And no one's close. Nobody's close. But let's keep going. See you at the next one. God love you all. Heading to North Carolina. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to go home with you. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. The President of the United States, it appears his cold has been cured. Once in front of an audience, he's able to project, and you can hear him a little better. I mean, it's a remarkable transformation. You have to sort of wonder whether that week-long prep session at Camp David that he had with his team, whether he was told not to shout in the mic or what it was, but he seemed so reserved.
And certainly somebody's gotten to him and given him some of the early reviews, and that was a response to that, it seems, almost certainly.
And one of the people involved with rehearsals at Camp David last week texted me earlier to say, who cares if we did or didn't tell you about having a cold before the debate? In their view, substantively, he hit him on abortion, he hit him on January 6th, he hit him on foreign policy, he called him a liar. They believe that carries them forward in the viral space and the algorithms that people will see when they wake up in the morning. We'll see. Not everyone will have watched this beginning to end. Certainly they'll hope that. And they'll probably cling to what our polls showed, that what, roughly 60% of Americans said the plan to watch said this isn't going to change their perception. So things stay 50-50.
Margaret?
I think just getting back to what we were talking about in the information space that we live in, certainly the campaigns think that they're only talking to their bases and what lives virally is what matters. But there were a lot of those little snapshot moment in time that don't look good for either man, certainly. But what the president just said there was in the next few days, they're going to be fact-checking him, fact-checking Donald Trump. They are relying on journalists to call out falsehoods by Donald Trump. And we will also, by the way, have to call out exactly what we have been doing, which was that there was fumbling, inability to really hit home on some of the key Democratic points, like abortion. That wasn't about a cold or, distance from the microphone. That was losing train of thought on one of the most key issues for Democrats, abortion.
Yeah.
It was fairly stunning.
And that is really upset some Democrats I've been in touch with tonight. He botched the party's stance on the issue.
And the thing he doesn't like talking about.
Of course.
On the thing he doesn't like talking about, but is so.
And it will be left to the vice president to clean it up in the coming hours and days.
There's much reaction to come ahead. And so joining us now from the Atlanta spin room is Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, good to have you on.
Thank you.
I know that you were with Donald Trump 2 weeks ago, giving him some tips and some pointers. Did he take your advice?
I didn't give him any tips or pointers. We just talked about policy. And I thought some of that, has been reflected from even before I talked to him. I give an example. Look, the core of this campaign is pretty straightforward. We've never had two former presidents, one former president, one existing president, running against each other. So Americans now can compare. Was I better off with Trump or was I better off with Biden? Americans had more money in their pocket when Trump was president. The world was a safer place. We didn't have people overrunning our borders when Trump was president. And with Biden, all these things have gotten worse. That's really the core issue here. That the president tonight, President Biden, looked ways that I think are concerning, not just for Democrats, but for America, because our adversaries are seeing this broadcast too and may conclude that they could take advantage of whatever they conclude from it. That's concerning, and that's certainly going to be relevant to a lot of people watching this from a political angle. But at the core is just that choice. There's no question, from economy to public safety to our standing in the world, our country was stronger and better off when Trump was president. And that is the core issue of this election, in my mind.
President Biden tonight pointed out that even Donald Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, has not endorsed Trump and that he knows him very well. Should that be a concern for voters?
No, I think because I go back to the point where voters are going to be concerned about it. I'm talking about like real people in everyday life, not people that follow politics as a sport or a hobby, but real people in everyday life. What they know is it costs a lot more money to put gas in my car. Eggs cost a lot more. I can tell you that firsthand from just yesterday. Milk. I mean, the price of housing, the mortgage rates, all of these things are worse off than they were just 4 years ago. And people are that's what they're going to vote on. And they're also going to vote on the fact that the world is on fire. We've got two major wars and the prospect of a very dangerous third one between Hezbollah and Israel. We have Taiwan increasingly threatened by China in ways that are unpredictable in the years to come. I think there's a sense that ISIS is back. The Taliban now controls Afghanistan. All these terrible things that have happened. And I think these are the things that weigh on Americans when they make this decision, not who endorsed who or those kinds of things that I think fascinate people in politics, but aren't really going to matter to people that are going to get up in a few hours and go to work.
You brought up about the war in Gaza right now and the threat on Israel by Hezbollah, that hotspot in the world. But former President Trump was asked directly about whether he would support a Palestinian state, and he responded by saying, "I'd have to see." Do you agree with him?
Yeah. And I think what he's basically saying, I mean, I don't mean to translate for him, but I can tell you what I surmise from that, and that is, I describe it differently, but I think it's the same thing. A Palestinian state run by who? Who is going to be in charge of it? Hamas? The Palestinian Authority? If a terrorist organization is going to be involved in a piece of territory, well, that's always been used to attack Israel. That's always been the fundamental question here. Israel has made generous offers to create Palestinian state and Palestinian territories in the past, and every time they've been used to attack Israel, including the horrifying situation we saw last 7th of October. So I think it does depend on who's going to be in charge of it. And frankly, I've been clear, I don't think the conditions are in place right now for that. I hope that changes, I really do. But I don't know who it is that's going to govern that territory people keep talking about. From the current actors that are on the stage, they're all terrorist organizations.
Senator, I'm also joined here by John Dickerson, who has a question for you.
Senator Rubio, I just wanted to go back on your point about about the vice presidency. It's good to see you again, Senator. You mentioned that voters are going to care about prices and the economy and all of that, and that seems thoroughly reasonable. But on those questions of national security and the lonely job of being president, the people who have said that worked for Donald Trump closely with him and saw him make those decisions, you got 2 secretaries of defense, 2 chiefs of staff, the Joint Chiefs of Staff chairman, the National Security Advisor, and many others have all said, do not let him back into the presidency. If you were hiring somebody for a job, wouldn't you pay attention to the referrals of the people who worked closely and most intimately with those issues that you care so much about and have dedicated your career to? Shouldn't voters pay attention or think about these references?
Well, yeah, but I think the problem in some of these cases is that it ended personally badly with some of them. And so, you know, I have to question some of the motives behind some of those statements. But I was there, too. I wasn't in the White House, but I was in the Senate. And I saw what happened with Iran after Trump killed Soleimani. I saw what happened with ISIS after they wiped out ISIS and got rid of al-Baghdadi. I saw what happened. And look, I would admit it, I was very skeptical about meeting with Kim Jong-un. But Kim Jong-un stopped launching missiles. I saw what happened with the Taliban, and I was skeptical about that, too, at the time. And you know what? During that period of time, from the moment they reached that deal to the end of the Trump presidency, the Taliban wasn't shooting at Americans anymore. And he's absolutely right. What happened in August of a couple of years ago would not have happened if Trump had been president. So I think we have to judge also by what we saw in the world at the time. And what we saw in the world at the time is we didn't have 2 major wars. And although unorthodox, we didn't have the sort of chaos that has now developed over the last 3.5 years under Joe Biden. And I think ultimately that's what voters feel, and it's what they see, and it's what they should really make their decision on, and I think they will.
Margaret Brennan is also here, Senator.
And Senator, it's good to see you, and I know you and I have talked about a lot of these very complex issues, and I don't think you mean to suggest that the United States is the cause of all the chaos in the world, though you seem to be implying that. Can you clarify that? And then I want to ask you specifically, Donald Trump said when it comes to the U.S. border, they're taking black jobs. He was talking about migrants taking black jobs. What is a black job?
Okay. Well, a couple things. First of all, you know what he meant by that, okay? He meant jobs that are filled by African Americans in America and others, Americans in general, but the question in specific was about black voters. He didn't ask that question. The moderators did. And so he segued into the impact that it's had on black voters. And that is very simple. When you flood a country with millions of people, you're going to have more competition for work. You are. And those workers are willing to do it at a lower wage. And that you see that in some of the fields like construction and trades. It impacts Hispanic communities as well. On your first question, look, the United States didn't invade Ukraine.
Sorry.
The United States didn't come across. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Finish.
No. You were going to ask me something.
I wanted to clarify on what you were just saying about black jobs. You seem to be saying these are low-wage jobs?
No, they're not low-wage jobs. These are working-class jobs.
Well, you talk about migrants taking low-wage jobs, and that he was talking about black voters.
No, what I said is that migrants are willing to come in and do it at a lower wage. They are. Because they are willing to take work at a lower wage than an American would. And as a result, they get hired and not the American. And that is something that people have talked about for a long time. I didn't make that up. I'm not the first person to make that observation. That has a real economic impact. It's not about low-wage jobs. They become low-wage jobs when someone comes in from abroad and is willing to do it at half the price as the person who's doing the work now. Now, back on the point about foreign policy, of course America didn't cause these problems, but American weakness entices it. All these people that we're talking about, Putin has always wanted Ukraine, okay? But he didn't go into Ukraine until he thought he could under Biden. He didn't do it until he thought he could under Biden. You know, the Taliban always wanted to overrun us, but they didn't do it when Trump was there, but they did it when Biden took over. These things have happened because of American weakness under this president.
Senator Rubio, thank you for your time and for joining us here on CBS. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Coming up, more analysis of the first presidential debate continues.
faces, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing or bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome to our debate analysis. And CBS News was in Raleigh, North Carolina to get real-time reactions from undecided voters. President Biden is actually going to be there tomorrow for a campaign event in that battleground state. Let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Weijia Jiang. Weijia, we are all waiting to hear. What did these voters tell you? What did they think of tonight?
Nora, it is great to see you. I have to tell you, tonight was so fascinating because we sat down with 5 voters. They came from all different political backgrounds, different ages, different races, and 3 of them were unregistered or as an independent and had not decided yet who they were going to vote for. And I have to say, at the end of the night, they said this debate did not get them any closer to making that decision. They were frustrated because even in the beginning, they said they yearned for policy details. They wanted to know what each candidate was going to lay out for their roadmap to make their lives better, especially with regard to the economy. And they were frustrated throughout this entire debate, Nora, because as we were watching, they kept saying, we want more, because they thought since the rules were different this time and since there would be no interruptions and that the candidates' microphones would be muted when they weren't speaking, they assumed that that would lead to more of a substantive conversation. And they said the opposite happened, that instead, when it was their turn to talk, they simply punched and jabbed at the other person and sometimes often didn't answer the question at all. So those 3 undecided voters say they are no closer. As for the staunch Biden supporter, she told me that she was worried after watching the president's performance during the first half of the debate, because she said she knew he was better than this, that he wasn't getting his message across, and that she worried that people would view him as not having the stamina and the energy energy that, of course, you guys have been talking about all night and certainly weeks before tonight even happened. As for the staunch Trump supporter, he said he was hoping that the president would show more maturity and more discipline, and even though he did at times, he also admitted at the end he was upset because he thought that Trump could have done better to really hammer home his message instead of taking jabs at Biden when he had the chance. And so, you know, when I asked what is going to, you know, get your vote between now and November, they said that they hoped that the policies would be more crystallized. But as of tonight, Nora, they were really expecting more and more answers that they say that they did not receive.
All right, Ouija Jang, thank you so much for that reaction.
I just want to know if did you tap the keg behind you, Ouija, during this thing? I mean, I think most Americans would have liked to, right? It was a bar, right?
Are you in a bar? Is that what that is? Yeah.
And I can't speak for what you would have done. No. We had a lot of pizza, we had a lot of Diet Coke, and it was a great time here.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more from those voters. Ouija Jang, thank you. And we will be right back with our fact check of the candidate statements. You're watching CBS News.
I'm Nora O'Donnell with
on our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team. Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Residents, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 Hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back. Former President Trump and President Joe Biden made a lot of claims in tonight's debate. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett has been checking the facts with our team. Major, let's break it down.
2 more for you, Nora, from the CBS News Confirmed team. First, something that former President Trump said. People are coming in and killing our citizens at a level like we've never seen before. The CBS News Confirmed team rates this as misleading. Not because there have not been crimes alleged to have been committed by undocumented immigrants in our country. That has happened. And for the victims of those crimes and their families, those are not statistics, those are real events. Tragic, And we're not saying it's misleading because those facts don't exist. We're saying it's misleading because the former president suggested that this is happening at a rate never before seen. And all the available statistical evidence shows that undocumented immigrants do not commit crimes at a higher rate than native-born Americans. Also, government statistics routinely show that those seeking to enter the country do not have criminal records from the country that which they have left in many, many cases. That's why the CBS News confirmed team rates this statement as misleading. Let's go to fact check number 2, something that President Biden said about former President Trump. Wants to get rid of Social Security, wants to cut Social Security and Medicare, jeopardizing that. We rate that, the CBS News confirmed team, as false. Former President Trump has said over and over again that he doesn't want to touch Social Security or Medicare. He made some references to some cuts within Social Security in one CNBC interview, but a spokesman for the campaign later came back and said that was not about benefits, that was not about anything structural within Social Security, only waste and fraud and abuse. That's where the Trump campaign is at. That's why the confirmed team rates that assertion from President Biden as false. Nora, back to you.
All right, really interesting stuff. Major Garrett, thank you for that quick work and turnaround as we fact-check the candidates. Want to bring in some of our strategists who have worked on campaigns and certainly have been inside those debate preps, have counseled candidates. And first, let's bring in Joel Payne, Democratic strategist who worked on the Clinton campaign. Joel, I know you talked to so many other Democrats. What did you think of the president's performance tonight? What are you hearing from other Democrats?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to show you my text chains tonight. There was a lot of frustration, as you could imagine. And look, I don't think it makes sense to sugarcoat that President Biden had a tough night. I think that's pretty evident. I think one of the reasons why he had a tough night is because his job was to consolidate his base. And to do that, you needed to firm up confidence with those weak-kneed Democrats who haven't come home yet. And I think that there were some real challenges with his attempts to do that. And I think what the Biden campaign is going to focus on over the next 48, 72 hours is fixing that with spin and fixing that with going and trying to highlight the moments that they felt like were best and are going to be moments that are going to bring some Democrats home, not necessarily the tough moments in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the debate.
Joel, the president spent much of the week, almost the whole week, at Camp David with his team. Is this a staff problem in terms of prep, or is this a candidate or principal problem?
I just think that this is a 2024 problem. Joe Biden lost the debate tonight in 2024 because he needed to win on presentation, and he did not win on presentation. I think on content, he was strong in some places and actually got a little bit stronger as the night went on. But in presentation, what many American people are going to judge our presidents on, he struggled. And I think that you can blame that on staff, you can blame that on the candidate. Whatever it is, it's got to get fixed. And I think you're going to hear a lot of Democrats, kind of echoing Ed's reporting, sharing some concerns about that. And I think it's something to watch out for. I know we'll be doing polling in the field coming up. I'd be very curious to see what public opinion polling looks like over the next 10 to 14 days.
It's a really good point. Good to have you. We are also joined by Terry Sullivan, who has worked on Republican presidential candidates' campaigns. And Terry, what happens now in terms of these 7 battleground states that matter, that are so close, or Trump is leading in about 6 of them?
Yeah, look, this was a horrendous performance by the president. I mean, when it's tough for Democrats to defend, and they're not. And my text chain looks like Joel from my Democrat friends. They're scared to death, and they're using words that I can't say on air. So it's going to be really tough for the Biden campaign. They've got a rough few weeks ahead of them.
Terry Sullivan, thank you. Joel Payne, also to Ed O'Keefe, John Dickerson, and Margaret Brennan. Thanks to all of you, Major Garrett, for your expert analysis. The first presidential debate of this election cycle is now in the books. Questions tonight. Will there be a second one? Our coverage will continue tomorrow on CBS Mornings. For those watching on CBS News 24/7 in the East, we'll be back. I'm Nora O'Donnell.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Okay, let's go.
You guys good?
Hey.
All right, we good?
Keep going. The clock, it's ticking.
Off we go.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, science